Okay, let me start up. And first of all, with an apology. As it's obviously clear to you guys, I'm not here the first week of class. I do apologize for this. The deal is I have an opportunity to go to Turkey. I've been to Turkey twice before with a colleague of mine, and she's offered to guide me again for a third time. First time I went to Turkey, I saw a bunch of Istanbul. Second time I went to Turkey, we looked around a little bit of Turkey, saw one of the oldest cities in the world. In Turkey, it's just called Efes, and amazing city. Roman ruins. I've never seen Roman ruins in person before, and the city had been founded hundreds of years before the Romans showed up. It was founded somewhere around 1600 BC, so it's just totally fantastic. So this time we're going to go back, and I think she's going to show me some more Turkey. So I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity. And unfortunately, that means I'm not here for the first week of class. But the other weeks, I'm coming back. And the other weeks, I will be here, and hopefully we'll have a few students in the classroom. I fully realize it's summer, and I'm thinking back to last summer. I think, Director, what did we have last summer? 2, 3, 4 students most days? That was about it, right?
Yeah, on average.
So definitely, look, if you're in Gainesville, I would strongly, strongly recommend to you to come to the class, okay? If you come to the class, it makes it seem more real. If you come to the class, you can ask me questions. You can ask me questions during the class. You can ask me questions during the break. You can ask me questions after class. I think those are useful. So definitely try to attend class if you are here in Gainesville. When you come to class, you don't have to bring your book or anything such as that. You could bring a computer if you take notes on it, but you don't have to. Just attend. And the class, it's 2 class periods. I'll give a break between the 2 class periods. So if you have a conflict with the second period, you can leave. You can go to the class the second period. Or if you have a conflict with the first period of our class, you can come in and watch the second period. Now, ideally, you'd watch both halves. But look, I think attending even just one of the 2 periods is positive. The lectures, of course, are going to be different, the 2 periods, but I think nonetheless, if you can come in, it's something you should do. Plus which, last summer I bought donuts for the class a few times. I expect to do it more frequently this summer, all right? Because I've lost a little bit of weight, so I figure I can eat a donut or 2 now and then. And the director, God, I mean, Director, you want to say something?
I'm always down for free donuts.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you'll never get a chance to see the director because he quite simply can't fit through the doors. He's on the big bone side, shall we say. But you may have a chance to see him. He's oftentimes over at Krispy Kreme licking the door. So if you do see him over there licking the door at Krispy Kreme, you can tell him I said hi. Now, what I want to do this first period is I just want to go over the syllabus. And this is a brand new syllabus. This is a so-called simple syllabus that UF is now requiring all instructors to use for their classes. And I was talking with the director before class. When I first started teaching here, and this was years and years and years and years ago, possibly if your grandparents came here, I would have had them in my class. It was that long ago. But the first syllabus I used here was 1 page, front of 1 page. And then I said, maybe I could add in a few more details. So I ended up for about 5 or 6 years using the front and then the back of an 8.5 by 14 piece of paper. I didn't use all the back either. There was some blank space on it. Now we're up to something that looks like this. It looks like a book. 16 pages. Much of this stuff is just boilerplate that UF puts on the syllabus now. So I want to go over the stuff that I think is important for our class. The boilerplate is going to be the same on all the syllabi you see for all of the classes now, because as I said, we're required to have this syllabi on what's called UF simple syllabus format. So in any case, the first page of this is relatively useless. It gives my name, course details, tells you it's 4 credits, the course fees, additional course description. If you've never taken a microeconomics course or an economics course at all, you might want to read that. I think that could be potentially useful. If you have had another economics course, I don't see the value. The book you need is Microeconomics, and it's written by Michael Parkin. And you want to make sure you acquire the book. This course is in UF All Access. You want to opt in to UF All Access because, as you'll see, there are going to be some quizzes. Those quizzes are on the MyEcon Lab. When you opt into the UF All Access, you get access to an e-textbook. You get access to the MyEcon Lab, which means you get access to the quizzes. So definitely opt in on All Access for this course. Let's see. General education. Unfortunately, I would typically show this up on the screen, the monitor, but the summer web page isn't done. The spring web page is done. The summer, I expect, will look very similar to the spring. So if you look, here is let's get rid of this stuff right here. Remind me later. Here is what the web page is probably going to look at. And when you click on the link over here, it should take you to the syllabus. If I clicked on the link right now, it'll take me to the spring syllabus, which is the last syllabus I wrote myself. The link on the summer class should take you to the simple syllabus, which is the one I'm going over. And if you want to keep look at it as I talk about, that's maybe a good idea. Anyway, then they have some stuff about general education, social science. Pretty useless. Course goals. Again, I'm not sure what you're supposed to get from that. Course expectations. It doesn't hurt you to read them. Probably doesn't help you very much to read them, but if it doesn't hurt, and if the help is even just a little bit, you probably should read them. Okay, but what is important is how the grade is determined. Your grade in this class is going to be determined using two things. They're going to be exams. So we'll have exams, and then they're going to be quizzes. And the quizzes are online quizzes. They are, as I said, on the MyEcon Lab. Let's see if I've got a better marker right here. So let me talk about the quizzes first of all. There are going to be 12 quizzes, of which we will count the top 10. The top 10 quizzes will factor in towards your grade. So each of the quizzes is going to have 10 questions. So, and I'll be quite frank with you, I think the questions are oftentimes very, very easy, very straightforward. The exam questions are going to be more difficult than these quiz questions. The quiz questions are basically just to make sure you stay up with the class, make sure you understand the basics of these chapters. So I think they're useful. But we'll take the top 10 quizzes, and suppose your top 10 quizzes, suppose you get 95 points, which is not atypical to see students doing so well. So you get 95 points. Well, you're going to divide the number of points you get on the quizzes, divide it by 10, and so this is going to give you 9.5. So you will get, in this case, 9.5 points from your quizzes. Now, how about the exams? How are the exams going to be? Well, we'll have 2 midterm exams and 1 final exam. The final exam is going to be cumulative. It's going to cover everything in the class. Midterm 2 is not going to be cumulative. Midterm 2 will cover only the new material that we've covered after midterm 1. So it'll just be between the midterm 1 day and the midterm 2 day, with the exception that I will go back into chapter 3. Chapter 3 is a really, really important question. It talks about supply and demand. So on midterm 2, I'll go back into chapter 3 and I'll ask some questions about chapter 3. But other than that, it's not cumulative. So for example, the material in chapter 4, that'll be on midterm 1. The material in chapter 5, that'll be on midterm 1. Won't show up on midterm 2, but it will show up on the final exam. So each of the midterms will have 30 questions. So you'll have 30 questions times 2. That means that there'll be 60 points on the midterms. The final exam will have 30 questions. That means there'll be 30 points on the final exam. So on the exams, there is a total of 90 points. So the way you want to think about this is the exams are 90 points. The quizzes, the maximum you can get is 10. So that means that there are 100 points available in the class. And your grade depends on these 100 points right here. It depends on how you do on the exams and how you do on the quizzes. So you add up your exam scores, you add to that this average of your quiz scores, and that gives you your total number of points. And that's what your grade depends on. So I'll come back and talk just in a bit about the quizzes, about the exams. But let me, where is it? So the grading scale is on page, 6 out of 16? God, 16 pages for a syllabus. Grading scale is on page 16. And if you look on page 16, you're going to see, well, here. If you look on this, you'll see that if you get between a 91.99 and a 88, this is an A- grade. Okay, and the other grades are here also. You'll notice there's no C-. There's no C- because I extended the C's. You need a C to get credit for this for some aspects of UF. And a C- wouldn't work, so I said I don't want to give anybody a C-. I'll just extend the C's. There's no D+ and a D-. I thought those were sort of not useful grades. If you look here, an E is 65.99 and below. So you want to get at least 2/3 of the points. If you get 2/3 of the points, you get a D. Hopefully you do much, much, much better. And I'll be honest, the vast majority of students do way better than 2/3, okay? But in any case, suppose you have something like this. I will not change the grades. If you fall in this range, you're going to get an A-. Inevitably, every semester I teach, there'll be students who are close to the higher grade. I might have a student whose grade in this case might be 91 point, let's say 70. Okay, so they got 9.7 or 8.7 points on the quizzes, whatever, but their score is 91.7. And then this student is inclined to email me and say, hey, I really liked your class, because you do want to add in something like that, put me in a good mood as I read the rest of the email. I really liked your class. I learned a lot in your class. You're a brilliant teacher. The director stinks. Sorry, director, but the email's putting me in a good mood, okay?
You can smell me from all the way down there?
They can smell you, don't worry about it. So I got a 91.7, and that's really close to an A. Could you maybe change my grade? Now, I face a real problem here. And the problem is that when I submit grades, it's almost like a Scantron. It's not quite, but it's almost like a Scantron. So you can think of it as, here's a bubble for an A, here's a bubble for an A-, here's a bubble for a B+, and then so on out. And then I have to bubble in what it is. It's not quite like this. It's actually a pull-down menu, but it works the same way. So anyway, A- is what I've bubbled in. Now, when the student emails me and says, I am really close to an A, I look at that and say, yeah, that student's right. That student is really close to an A. And suppose between the A and the A-, there's another bubble right here, and it says really close to an A. Okay, there's a Richter grade right there. If there was that possibility, I would say, oh my goodness, I erred, I screwed up. I should have given this student a Richter grade, not an A-, because they are really close to an A. But UF doesn't have that grade. Okay, I can't give you that Richter grade. If you want to get that grade, if you want to get a Richter really close to an A, you've got to go talk to the university president. And you've got to tell the university president, look, Professor Rush will give me a Richter if you just let him do so. And the president's going to look at you like you're crazy, because you are, but we'll set that aside. So the issue here is that, this is an A-. It is below 91.99, and it is above 88.00, and that falls square in the A minus category. I'll tell you a true story. And this, again, harkens back to when my syllabus was just one page, one side of one page. This was the first summer I taught at the University of Florida. And in this first summer, I had a student who did very poorly in the class. Okay, based on the current grading scale, this student got about a 67, which is a D. And this was way before email, so if you wanted to try to convince me to change the grade, you actually had to come to my office. And so he came to my office, and as I said, this student really wasn't the let's put it this way, he makes the director look like he's semi-intelligent, okay? So he comes into my office, and he goes, "Hi, I was in your class and I got a D." No attempt to schmooze or anything, say, "Hey, I was in your class last summer. I really loved it. It was a great class, but I didn't do as well as I wanted. I got a D." Nothing like that. It's just, "Hey, I was in your class. I got a D. And I don't want a D. I want a C." And that was the first tip-off that I was dealing with a student who was probably better suited to be at FSU. But because he says he wants a C, I'm thinking, you got a D, why would you just want a C? You might want, an A. I want an A. I want it to be the best possible, but why do you just want to be mediocre? So, but I didn't say that. I'm not that foolish. But, this is where the thing starts, that he wants a C. And I said, wants a C. And I said, why do you want a C? I mean, you got a D. What's the biggie about getting a C? And he said, I'm on academic probation. And I didn't know what academic probation was. Okay? But let me put this down. This was the next thing he told me. He's on academic probation. And the deal was, he took 2 classes over the summer, and he had to average a B in those 2 classes. And instead what he got was, in my class, he got a D, and in the other class, he got a D. So he got 2 Ds. And, he needed to average a C. He needed to average a C over these 2 classes, and he averaged a D over the 2 classes. He was a solid D student that summer. I said, oh, well, geez, doesn't sound like you made it, right? But, again, what's the biggie? And he says, well, I'm on academic probation. I go, yeah, you told me that. And I said, what's it mean? He says, well, if I'm on academic probation, then I can't register for classes in the fall. So I have no fall classes. And I decided at this point I would be philosophic. I said, well, maybe this isn't a bad idea. Maybe this will give you some time to think about your life, to think about what you want to do with your life, and to come back refreshed and reinvigorated and ready to do much better when you come back. And he said, no, because if I don't have fall classes, that means that I'm going to have no fall student aid. So no fall student money. And again, I'm thinking to myself, this really kind of makes sense, right? Because this is student aid, it's given to students. You're not taking classes, you're not a student. It's not clear to me why you should be getting student aid if you're not a student. But again, I didn't say that. Okay, I'm not that foolish. But I said, oh, geez, well, that's too bad. Well, maybe you could get a job. And he says, well, I can have no job. I can't get a job because I'm married. And that, frankly, that really puzzled me. I was married. I had a job, okay? Director's married. Director has a job. Okay, just being married doesn't preclude you from getting a job. But again, I wasn't scratching my head like I'm doing now. It was all internal, internal scratching my head. And I said, well, okay, well, you can't get a job. Maybe the wife can get a job. But he says, my wife also cannot get a job. And I said, why? And he said, because she's pregnant. And we're expecting our first child in the fall. And I go, good grief, this is like an onion, okay, where there's always another layer here. I started out with, he wants a C in the class, And I moved from that to academic probation, then I ended up with the fact the wife is pregnant. Well, unfortunately for him, we just had our first child a year or so prior, and I'd read a bunch of the baby books that were available at the time. And what those baby books said was that in order to have a good life with your child, what you need to do is bond with your child. How do you bond with your child? How do you bond with your baby? Well, you just spend hours with the baby. You know, you hold the baby out here, baby looks at you, you look at the baby, and you bond with the baby, and the baby bonds with you. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to, again, not saying this out loud, but I'm thinking I'm going to give you a real chance to bond with your kid because I'm not changing the grade. Now, I'm screwing the kid over because the kid is bonding with a moron, but what the hey. So I said, look, you got a D in my class. I don't change grades, period, end. I don't change grades. So here are the 2 grades. The D in my class is going to stay a D. But go talk to this person right here, this person who gave you the D, have them change your grade to a B, because then the B and the D together average out as a C, and you'll be good to go. And the student thought this was a good idea. I didn't think it was a good idea, but it was good for me to say that because he said, oh, that's a good idea. And he immediately left my office to go hunt down the other person and say, how's in your class? I got a D, I want a B. Okay, and I didn't see him back. So this is a true story. I've never had anybody ever tell me a more elaborate story or a better story. I did hesitate to use this story. When it came up on like the 20th year anniversary of me being at UF, because I'm saying, well, maybe this guy's kid is in the room. I didn't think so because DNA is maybe intelligence is maybe at least partially heritable. And I didn't think that the kid was going to get a big scooping of extra good DNA when it comes to intelligence from the dad. But in any case, if you can come up with a better story, let me know. I won't change your grade, but I certainly will use it in future classes. And I could appreciate it. But again, I'm not going to change your grade. So please, end of the semester, I always get students emailing, can you change my grade? Can you change my grade? No, I mean, the grades are what the grades are. If I change your grade, that's going to put somebody else real close to what the new cutoff is. So why shouldn't I change their grade? And then if I change their grade, then another person gets real close. It's just a slippery slope. I don't ever want to step on the slope. So I'm not going to change grades. Your grades depend strictly on what these scores are. There's no extra credit. Okay, there's nothing other than the exams and the quizzes, at least as far as I know right now. Also, there is a spot in Canvas where it says something like your grade or your score or something like that, and that's turned off in this class because Canvas is not as sophisticated as you would wish it would be. Canvas can't handle dropping the 2 lowest quizzes. So that score that Canvas would give you is always going to be inaccurate. And that's why it's turned off. But all you have to do is add up your exam scores, add up your average quiz score, and that'll tell you where you stand in the class. That'll tell you what your grade is at the end of the class. Okay, coming back to the exams. As I said, there are 30 points possible on each exam. Hasn't happened recently, but suppose I had an exam that was very difficult and the average was low. I will add points to increase the average to 21. So for example, suppose that the average score on an exam was 19. The odds of that happening are just minuscule, okay? I don't think I've ever had an average score of 19. But if that happened, then I would use as a curve, everybody would get plus 2 points. And so that means that after I add the curve, then the actual average would be 21. Now, that means some people who got 30 will get 32. Okay, that's the way it is. Somebody who got 29 will get 31 because you'll get 2 points added to your score. Suppose that the score, and this is a lot more realistic, suppose the score is 24, the average is 24. Looking at this and just thinking about the symmetry of it, it would seem reasonable that I should subtract 3 points from everybody's score, and that makes the average 21 again. That would seem very symmetric. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is that I do occasionally like to eat, off campus at Paisanos, say, or at Just Salad, something like that. And in any case, to get to those places, I've got to cross either University or 13th. And in all honesty, I'm not going to be eating at Just Salads, McDonald's down the street. That's where I'm going to be eating, okay? And to get to McDonald's, I've got to cross both 13th and University. Those are busy roads. I don't know who's in my class. The class is not huge in the summer, but it's large. And so there are a bunch of students in my class that I don't know because they won't be coming to the class. I won't recognize their faces. And suppose I subtract 3 points from everybody's score. And I start to cross, let's say, 13th, and I hear a car engine going, rum, 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 rum. I'm thinking, well, there are a couple of things that could be happening here. One, this is a student from whom I just subtracted 3 points, and the student is unhappy, shall we say. Or two, the car engine is close to stalling, and the driver is giving it gas. And I'm not sure which it is. Now, when I was younger and more nimble and more fleet of foot, I could just jump aside and go, ha 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 ha, missed me, I subtracted 3 points. I'm not now, okay? I'm just gonna stagger across the street. I don't want to have to worry about jumping or anything such as that. So to keep my life simple, if the average is above 21, I don't subtract anything. That leaves the average, whatever it is. It'd be 24 in that case. As I say, it's a lot more likely to get an average of 24 than an average of 19. Let's see, what else? Oh, the quizzes. Looking back at the syllabus, let's see, that's about the exam, that's about the quizzes. Looking at the syllabus, if you look on page 5 and 6, you'll see when the quizzes are scheduled to open up and when they're scheduled to close. All of the quizzes close at 8 a.m. That's 8 a.m. in the morning, all right? They do not close at midnight. They do not close at 8 p.m. They close at 8 a.m. So all the quizzes close at 8 a.m. If you try to take the quiz at 8:05, or 8:03 or 8:01. It's not going to work. They're not, you won't be able to get on to taking the quiz at that time. So get the quiz done. All right, if you look on this syllabus, you'll see, for example, quiz 1 on chapter 2. This is going to open on Monday, May 11th, and it's going to close on Wednesday, May 20th. That gives you 9 days to take the quiz. Take the quiz early. If you're sick on the 20th, and you email me and say, I'm sick, can you extend the quiz deadline for me? The answer is no. You have 9 days to take the quiz. Don't wait till the last minute to take the quiz. If you email me and say, well, I was going to take the quiz at 7 o'clock on the 20th, and my internet broke, can you extend the deadline? No, because you have 9 days to take the quiz. Take the quiz early, okay? Don't wait till the last minute. If you wait till the last minute, what that is saying is, hey, if something bad happens, I can't overcome it. I'm going to miss a quiz. Now, that's the reason why I let you drop 2 quizzes, because you may miss a quiz. If you miss a quiz, that's probably going to be one of the 2 that you drop, because you're going to get a 0 on that quiz. But if you miss 3 quizzes, look, you're dropping only 2. That means that one of those quizzes is going to still be in your top 10 because you only dropped 2. Don't miss the quiz deadlines. Write the quizzes down in your calendar right now. All right. I have students who will email me and say, I didn't realize the deadline was on Wednesday, the 20th. Realize it. Put it in your calendar. If you don't have a calendar, start one right now. A calendar is something you're going to use throughout your life, something to remind you of when you've got deadlines coming up. I basically couldn't survive without my calendar telling me what I have lined up to do on each day. So make sure that you put this in your calendar when the quizzes open and when they close, okay? The quizzes close at 8, but they open at 3 p.m. If you've taken Professor Knight's 2013 class, those are the exact same times that he uses. I basically copy the times from him, okay? Let's see, what else is on here on the syllabus? I'm now up on I'm on page 7. If you look on page 7, you'll see the course schedule. I printed this out. There's some happy smiley faces on this for days where they're holidays, days when we don't have class. At least when I printed it out, those just came out as blank. But on the online version, I have seen the online version, the simple syllabus. It looks like those happy smiley faces are there. So say May 25th, there's apparently a holiday. We won't have a class that day. You can see when the exams are. Oops, that one didn't print out very well. I'll have to fix that. But you can see when the exams are. The exams are going to be given in the evening. The exams, and here, let me actually write this down. This also should go on your calendar about these exams. So the exams are given from 7 p.m., that's in the evening, to 8 p.m., that's also in the evening, Gainesville time. So that means that if you're in California, for example, this is going to be from 4 to 5 p.m. in California. And if you're in Turkey, this is going to be hellacious, 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. Okay, would be the time of the exams. I can't change the time, all right? If you are in Europe and it's a really awkward time, I'm sorry about that. But, you know, UF just says test security is such, we don't want to be changing the times. This is when you'll be taking the exam, all right? If you're here on campus, you'll take all the exams in Carleton 100. Carleton 100 is the huge auditorium, 650 odd seats or so. And let's see, exam 1, midterm 1. This is going to be on June, and let me try to read this, June 8th. Again, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Midterm 2, and this is going to be on July 13. And then the final, this is sort of an odd day. This is a Wednesday. Will be on August 5. So there are the exam days and the times for the class. If you have a conflict, and it's one that UF allows, so you have another exam at the same time, or your UF-sponsored event, or there's a religious holiday or something on here, email me, okay, and we'll work out an alternative time for you to take the test. Let's see, what else is on here? One thing, when you look at the course schedule, you'll notice that it says read below. Read below because in some of the chapters, you don't have to read everything. And some of the chapters I want you to pause, I want you to skip until we reach a later point in the course. There are a couple of chapters where I think stuff comes early. I want you don't read it early, just wait till it's useful. Then there's some chapters where I think the stuff is just not important. It's too technical, it's not important. I think some of it better fits in an intermediate microeconomic class as opposed to a principles class. So if you look at the bottom, you'll be able to skip some of the reading. And skipping some of the reading is probably something you may like to do, all right? Then, after that, comes a whole bunch of stuff. Page 8, most of page 8, all of page 9, all of page 10 are UF stuff, okay? This is just UF boilerplate. You're going to see it everywhere. Page 11 is mostly stuff, except for the TA office hours. We're going to have TAs. They're going to be on Zoom. And I don't yet know when they're going to be because the TAs are basically undergraduates, just as you. They're students who have taken the class and have done really well in the class. And so that's who we use as TAs. We hire the students. Professor Knight, if you're interested in being a TA, email Professor Knight. He's the one who hires all the TAs. Anyway, we have to wait until they adjust their schedules and we can see what times they're free. And as soon as we know that, we'll schedule TA office hours. I'll let you guys know via email. Let's see, then coming up here, business career services. This is something that I think the Warrington College does. So if you are majoring in the Warrington College, this business career services is, I think, a real major advantage. But then internet connectivity issues, civility, technology assistance, recording class lectures, this is all UF stuff. Course communication, this is important. I don't use a Canvas messaging system. There's emails in Canvas. The issue is that the website, my website is in the Warrington College of Business Administration. I, however, am housed in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And somewhere between those two colleges, there is a disconnect. I don't get all of the emails that are sent to me on Canvas, and I cannot reply to any of the emails that are sent to me on Canvas. So don't send me emails via Canvas. I don't get them, and I can't reply to them. All right, if you want to email me directly. My email is easy. All right, I think even the director could remember this possibly. It's just my name, Mark Rush, at ufl.edu. Okay, just email me directly. If you don't hear back from me within a reasonable amount of time being day and a half, email me again. I get a bunch of emails, not so much from students, just junk emails, all right? But I get a bunch of emails, and it's possible for your email for it to be pushed down off the screen, and I won't see it, and I won't remember it's there. So if you don't hear back from me, email me again. I don't get mad at you. I get mad at myself for screwing up, because I should reply to the emails and make sure I get everyone done immediately. And sometimes I just hesitate because I say I want to think about it, and then I forget about the thing. So if you don't hear back, by all means, email me again. Email me directly. Okay, let's see. Academic honesty, course delivery, ECO2023, I think the general education curriculum, that's all business. That's all UF stuff. So anyway, that's the syllabus. I know some classes have syllabus quizzes. You guys can read. I don't need to have a syllabus quiz. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. So I guess that's about it. If you have questions on anything I have said this time, or anything I say in the next lecture, or the lecture after that, or the lecture after that, or the lecture after that, whatever, email me. Okay, email me. Because if you have a question, it almost always means one of a couple of things. One, I've erred. Two, I've missed something. Or three, I've just said something in such a confusing fashion that you can't understand it. And if I err, if I miss something, or if I'm confusing, that means not only you are affected, but everybody's affected. And so if you email this and say, oh my goodness, I was wrong, or oh my goodness, I forgot this, and it's important for the class to know, I'll email out to everybody, okay? So you'll be doing yourself a favor, and potentially also the rest of the class a favor too. So let me ask, Director, do you have any questions on this?
Not that I can think of. You've done a wonderful job presenting today, and I'm so proud of you.
In other words, what you're saying is you want to get the heck out of here, right?
Absolutely. Let's go home.
Yeah, that's kind of like what he's saying. So, okay, let me draw this lecture to a close. When are they going to see the next lecture? You'll put the first two lectures up at the same time, right, Director?
Yes.
Okay, so you now skip over to the next lecture. That's going to actually have some economics. And, talking about a syllabus, oh man, this is so fun to talk about a syllabus. Everybody loves a syllabus lecture. Blah. Okay, but the next lecture talks about economics. Economics is fun, okay? So if you got questions about the syllabus, email me, but then watch the next lecture, because that's going to start you on your journey to economic knowledge. That sounds really cool, doesn't it, Director?
Sounds magnificent.
Yeah. So now the director's expecting me to go buy him 24 donuts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a small snack for him, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, watch the next lecture.